Ukraine gains great momentum. Developments in Bakhmut in favor of Ukraine are increasing. War is a phenomenon that depends on many factors. Ammunition, weapons, soldiers, etc. are fundamentally very important. However, in the following process, factors such as physical capacity of the army, the intelligence of the staff commanders, and operational skills come into play. The most important factors are natural and geographical factors. Without good planning and organization, geographical conditions and natural elements can become the biggest enemy. For this reason, it is critical to be able to organize the war and adapt to the conditions. The challenges of geographical conditions hinder the work of soldiers at the front in many ways. Extra conditions such as heavy snowfall, heavy rain, extreme heat, extreme cold, storms, wind, etc. are all things that frontline troops do not like. The operation of combat vehicles, the shelter of soldiers, and many other activities are hampered by climatic conditions. A long time has passed since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. During this time, we have witnessed many events. We have told you how difficult the war is, especially in winter conditions. In the coming period, winter and similar conditions are likely to occur again. But this time, there are some advantages for the Ukrainian army. It seems that the advantages it has recently gained in Ukrainian counterattacks will continue in the winter period. Likewise, Ukraine is increasing its gains in the Bakhmut region. The information obtained is considered promising for the Ukrainian army. If you're ready, let's examine the positive indicators for the Ukrainian army together. The positions of the Ukrainian army in recent counterattack operations were considered as important gains for Ukraine. Ukrainian armored vehicles were observed operating beyond many of the defensive barriers that Russian forces erected last winter in the occupied southern region of the country. The fact that Ukrainian armored vehicles have penetrated behind the Russian defense lines is interpreted as an important gain for the upcoming winter period. The Ukrainian army wants to keep advancing because of the possibility of the geographic turning into a swamp when winter arrives and the possibility that the counterattack will be relatively slowed down. It is desired to push the Russian occupation troops out of the border with a breakthrough to be made before the winter fully arrives. Footage from the front line shows German-made Marder and American-made Stryker infantry fighting vehicles are of the Ukrainian army operating behind the main field fortification near the Robotny-Verbov line. These tanks have reached their positions by crossing trenches, Dragon's Teeth, and the most prepared trench lines of the Russian army. In the winter of the last year, the advances were largely halted. The reason for this was the late access of the Ukrainian army to heavy weapons and fierce fighting in the eastern regions. However, the Ukrainian army is developing a cautious counterattack strategy by protecting its important military resources. It is well known that Russia wants to prolong the war, especially in this period when the Russian army is weakened. The longer the war lasts, the better for the Russian army. For this reason, the Ukrainian army is cautiously trying to use its resources in a forward-looking manner. Military experts commented positively on Ukraine's strategy. They say that the Ukrainian army is not only tactically focused on liberating territory, but it is also looking at the situation from a broader perspective. The Ukrainian army wants to maintain the initiative to prevent the Russian army from regrouping and dismantle its defensive positions. The most important criterion for Ukraine's success in the coming days will be the breakdown of the balance of power. The Ukrainian army, which will gain the upper hand once the balance of power is broken, will make new moves to maintain its advantage. It is the pressure on the Russian lines increases, and if the pressure can continue for a long time, the Russian occupation may come to an end. It is becoming increasingly difficult for the Russian troops to hold on into the region. It will become increasingly difficult for the Russians, whose logistic networks is about to collapse, to reinforce the region in winter conditions. For this reason, the Ukrainian army's increasing and sustained pressure seems to be the easiest way to end the occupation. According to information obtained from local sources, the Ukrainian army is conducting detailed work in the liberated regions. The Ukrainian army, which makes a strong entry into the regions targeted in counterattack operations, establishes strong networks in these regions. In this way, they increase the pressure at the points where the Russian troops withdraw. Russian troops cannot withstand the pressure for a long time, and the Ukrainian army advances to the next line. This is how the operation continues. The Ukrainian army has gained significant momentum since the beginning of the war. The gains made and the experience gained by the Ukrainian army have caused great concern to the Russians. The Ukrainian army continues on its way by increasing its capabilities day by day. With the arrival of winter condition, it is seen as a possibility that the Russian system will be locked. For this reason, the Ukrainian army is making all its preparations and waiting for a winter to arrive. If the Ukrainian army, which wants to throw the Russians to the outer points of the borders before the winter comes, completes this goal, it will show its permanence in the region by suppressing the Russians during the winter period. Assessments on Ukraine's counteroffensive operations have been made for a long time. However, the recent escalation of the attacks and the withdrawal of Russian troops have focused the assessment on the upcoming period. While the Ukrainian army's counteroffensive remains on the agenda, important developments are taking place in other parts of the front. According to Russian sources, the Russian army is experiencing major problems in the Bakhmut region. According to Russian sources, Russian troops in Bakhmut cannot make progress. But the Russian army is trying to show that it is winning the war. Propaganda content is being prepared to deceive the Russian people. The Russian army instantly sends troops to the region to make it look like they are winning the war. But the soldiers who reach the region lose their lives under Ukrainian attack. Russian soldiers who react to the situation are subjected to threats from the barrier troops. In the article and news circulation on social media, it is mentioned that Russian soldiers are sent to the meat grinder. There has been no statements from the Russian authorities on this issue, but local sources confirm the situation. In a video shared on social media, important developments were recorded. The Russian ammunition depot in Krasnodar in Luhansk region was attacked. In the images showed the moment of the attack, a big explosion occurred. The fire that broke out after the explosion could not be brought under the control for a long time. The Russian ammunition depot had been under surveillance by Ukrainian intelligence for a long time. The warehouse, which was used as an arms depot and ammunition production center by the Russians in this region, was also important for the Russians due to its location. Ukrainian military intelligence, which was monitoring the area with unmanned aerial vehicles, completed its preparations for the operation. After the preparations were completed, the operation was carried out in the early hours of the morning. The Russian ammunition depot was destroyed along with its contents. What do you think about the preparations of the Ukrainian army for the upcoming period? How do you think the coming of winter will affect the war on the front? What do you think about the Russian army's propaganda to make it look like they are winning the war in Bakhmut? What do you think about the Ukrainian military intelligence's destruction of the Russian arsenal? We care about your opinion. Please share it with us.